On a quiet August evening in 1977, inside a small radio observatory in Ohio, the universe seemed to whisper. The night air was heavy with the kind of silence only deep space could bring, an endless hush interrupted only by the steady hum of machines, the roll of tape, the faint scratching of pens across logbooks. Here, in the low-lit chambers of the Big Ear radio telescope, something extraordinary arrived. It came as a sequence of numbers and letters, a cryptic pattern traced not in ink but in the language of the cosmos itself. A line of data, nothing more, and yet it burned with a strange intensity, unlike anything recorded before. When Astronomer Jerry Ehman saw it on the printout, he circled it in red and scrawled one word in the margin, a word that carried more weight than an entire library of speculation. Wow! That single exclamation would become the name of a mystery that has endured for nearly half a century. The wow signal. A signal so sharp, so precise, that even today no one can explain it with certainty. Was it a message? An accident? Or something far older? Something our instruments caught only by chance, as though the cosmos itself allowed us a fleeting glimpse of its hidden machinery. To understand the gravity of that moment, we must step back, step away from the blinking consoles and the steady roll of paper, and into the older story, the story of humanity's long gaze at the stars. For millennia, the night sky has been both a mirror and a mystery. The Babylonians etched its patterns into clay tablets. The Egyptians aligned their pyramids with Orion's belt. The Mayans carved calendars from the breath of the heavens, always searching, always listening. In the great silence of creation, humanity has often wondered, are we alone? Or is our solitude merely a shadow cast by distance too vast for sound to cross? The wow signal was not the first attempt to pierce that silence. In the 1960s, when the world was still learning the language of radio waves, scientists began to imagine the cosmos as a vast ocean of signals, some born of stars, some of pulsars, and perhaps some, just perhaps, of minds. To listen to the sky was to press an ear against eternity, hoping for a ripple. And then came August 15, 1977. For 72 seconds, the Big Ear telescope captured something it had never heard before. A narrowband radio emission. A frequency so pure it seemed to carry intent. Unlike the noisy chatter of space, this signal was clear, singular, and powerful. It did not repeat. It did not linger. It came, it burned, and it vanished. Some liken it to the crack of a twig in a dark forest. A sound so brief, yet so distinct, it can change the way you walk forever. Yet history is never just about the event itself, it is about the way memory folds around it. Jerry Ehman's red circle, his handwritten wow, transformed a simple log of numbers into a relic. That scrap of paper is preserved even now, as though it were a fragment of an ancient manuscript, its meaning endlessly debated by scholars. And like all relics, it has become both evidence and enigma. Was it the first message ever received from an alien intelligence? Or was it a cosmic coincidence, a natural phenomenon we had not yet learned to name? Theories began to spread like cracks in glass. Some said it was a passing comet, others an alignment of planets, others a satellite stray. Yet none of these answers fit cleanly. The signal was too precise, too unusual, too stubborn in its refusal to be explained away. There is a haunting truth here. The universe does not often give us clear voices. It gives us fragments, echoes, glimpses, and the burden of meaning falls to us. The wow signal stands as one such fragment. It lingers not just in radio archives, but in the human imagination, where it has become something more than data. A whisper, a suggestion, a question that stares back at us through the glass of time. And in that question lies a pattern older than the telescope, older than science itself. Humanity's restless suspicion that we are not alone. Every ancient myth of gods descending from the stars, every carved symbol of beings with elongated heads, every story of sky spirits who brought knowledge to humankind, they all echo faintly when we speak of the wow. signal. For a brief moment in 1977, the divide between myth and measurement seemed too narrow. The language of the ancients, the longing of poets, and the instruments of modern science all pointed in the same direction, upward, outward, into the abyss. The paper with the red circle has become like a key, small, simple, unassuming, but one that suggests a door we have not yet found. And perhaps on that summer night in Ohio, the lock gave the faintest turn. But this was only the first shadow of what history has yet to tell. The wow signal, once caught, refused to settle into the neat drawers of explanation. It has lived ever since like an ember carried through the corridors of time, flaring whenever touched by curious minds. But to follow its trail is to find yourself wandering through a hall of mirrors, each reflection offering a possibility, each shadow hinting at something beyond reach. In the weeks after that fateful August night, astronomers at Ohio State tried to retrace their steps. They pointed the Big Ear telescope back to the region of Sagittarius, the place in the sky where the signal had appeared. They listened, they waited, but the voice never returned. Like a traveler glimpsed on a foggy road, it had passed once, and once only, leaving behind nothing but footprints that faded as soon as they were seen. Yet absence has a way of deepening mystery. It sharpens the edges of memory, turning what might have been ordinary into something legendary. And so the wow signal began to acquire its weight not merely as a data point, but as a symbol. Astronomers debated in cautious tones. Could it have been a natural emission, some rare celestial alignment? Was it the signature of a comet's hydrogen cloud passing through the band? Each proposal was tested, written into papers, and yet like waves against stone they broke apart. None could explain the narrow frequency, the intensity, the silence before and after. It is here that the story of the signal begins to echo older patterns, for the history of knowledge is often the history of signals misheard, misunderstood, or dismissed. Think of the Antikythera mechanism, hauled from a shipwreck and mistaken for a corroded lump until someone noticed its gears spoke the language of the heavens. Or the Rosetta Stone, a slab ignored until it was realized that the strange characters etched upon it were the key to forgotten voices. The wow signal belongs to that same lineage, an object too strange to fit, too fragile to dismiss, a whisper half heard. But history does not live in laboratories alone. Beyond the papers and telescopes, there were others who saw in the signal a reflection of something far older. Humanity's long tradition of listening for voices beyond the veil. Ancient Sumerian texts spoke of beings who descended from the skies, bringing laws and knowledge. Medieval chroniclers wrote of mysterious trumpets heard. In the heavens, sounds that foretold change. Indigenous traditions across continents carried stories of sky messengers who spoke not in words but in signs, flashes, storms, patterns of stars. Is it coincidence that across centuries, across cultures, people have always felt that the sky was alive with messages? Or is the wow signal simply the first time our machines overheard what the ancients had long tried to tell us, that we are not the only minds in this vast silence? And yet, science, cautious as always, does not permit such leaps. The wow signal remained an outlier. It was recorded, preserved, admired, but never claimed as proof. A one-time event could never meet the burden of evidence, and so it lingered in limbo, where fact and myth quietly entwine. Decades passed, technology evolved, telescopes grew keener, arrays stretched wider. Computers learned to sift the skies with a patience beyond any human observer. Thousands of signals were catalogued, pulsars, quasars, the wild orchestra of the cosmos, yet none bore the same uncanny mark as that one burst from 1977. What makes the wow signal linger is not merely the data itself, but the silence that followed. Had it repeated, it might have been explained, classified, filed away. But in refusing to return, it became a ghost. And ghosts live in the space between certainty and doubt, where the imagination flourishes. The paper with Ehman's red circle has been passed through countless hands. Some treat it as an artifact of pure science, others as a relic of contact. But look closely and you see something more. The trembling handwriting of a man confronted with the possibility that centuries of human longing had, for 72 seconds, found an answer. Even Jerry Ehman himself urged caution. He warned against leaping to conclusions, against declaring the signal extraterrestrial. He knew too well the weight of such claims. And yet one cannot help but feel that the exclamation he wrote, the simple word "wow," betrays a deeper truth. Sometimes the human heart leaps before the mind can restrain it, and so the wow signal sits suspended like an unresolved chord, not confirmed, not denied, a mystery held in the palm of history's hand, fragile as parchment, enduring as myth. But the trail does not end here, for while the telescopes of Ohio fell silent, others around the world began their vigil. New ears turned to the stars, inspired by that fleeting whisper, and with each attempt the sense grew that perhaps the wow signal was not an answer at all, but an invitation, an opening door. And still, the trail led further into a darkness older than the empires themselves. It is strange how silence can weigh more heavily than sound. The wow signal, though it lasted less than 2 minutes, has carried the burden of centuries on its narrow shoulders. What was once just a flicker of numbers on a printout has become a riddle whispered across generations, a modern myth wearing the clothes of data. In the decades that followed, attempts were made to replicate, to retrace, to summon the voice again from the heavens. Giant arrays rose in deserts, mountains, and plains, their dishes turned outward like the ears of titans straining for a murmur in the void. The SETI Institute poured countless hours into listening. NASA, for a time, joined the search. Even amateur astronomers tuned in with home-made antennas, dreaming that they too might hear what Jerry Ehman once glimpsed in the static, but the signal never returned, and so it lives in a peculiar twilight, too precise to dismiss, too fleeting to confirm, a lone cipher, unaccompanied by repetition, unanchored by context. Science demands verification, but mystery thrives in the unverified. In this way, the wow signal has become something larger than itself, less an answer than a mirror held to our own longing. For when we ask if it was a message, we are asking something deeper. Who are we if the universe is not empty? Ancient philosophers wrestled with the same question long before telescopes reached the stars. Epicurus reasoned that an infinite universe must hold infinite worlds, some like ours, some stranger still. Giordano Bruno spoke of endless suns with endless planets circling them, each a potential harbor for life, and for daring to say so, he was burned at the stake. The wow signal was not a confirmation of Bruno's vision. Yet in that sudden burst of sound, it felt as though his ashes stirred and his words breathed again. Perhaps that is why the signal haunts us, because it pressed against the fragile wall between myth and science, showing how thin that wall truly is. A Sumerian priest pointing at the sky, a Mayan astronomer charting Venus, a renaissance. Heretic dreaming of other suns, all of them. In some quiet waste and beside the astronomers at the Big Ear telescope gazing upward with the same question burning in their chests, was it a message? If so, what did it say? Some speculate it was a greeting, a cosmic knock on the door. Others imagine it as an accidental leak, like a candle seen through the window of a faraway house. And still others whisper of something stranger, that it was not meant for us at all, but that we intercepted a transmission passing between unknown worlds. We do not know, we may never know, but in that not knowing lies a peculiar kind of power. The wow signal reminds us that certainty is not the only compass. Mystery, too, can guide us. It is the unanswered questions that keep our ears tilted to the night sky, that keep our instruments humming, that keep our myths alive. The great paradox of the wow signal is that its silence has spoken louder than any message could. It has forced us to listen more intently, to question more deeply, to dream more expansively. Like a fragment of scripture torn from an unknown book, it leaves us desperate to read the rest. And so the paper with its red circle endures, not as proof, not as evidence beyond doubt, but as a relic of wonder. A reminder that history is not only written in wars and empires, but in fleeting whispers caught on August nights, in ink scrawled across fading printouts, in questions that outlive the men who asked them. Perhaps one day another signal will come. Perhaps it already has, and we did not notice or did not understand. Or perhaps the silence itself is the answer that intelligence is rare, fragile, a flicker easily lost. Yet even if no other voice ever speaks, the wow signal has already fulfilled its purpose. It has reminded us that we are listeners, that we are seekers, that our story is inseparable from the sky above us. And maybe, just maybe, the past is not behind us at all, but all around us. A vast chorus waiting for the right ears to hear, the right eyes to see, the right minds to recognize the patterns woven through time and stars alike. So we return again and again to that simple exclamation scrawled in the margin of a printout. Wow! A word that is not an answer, but an opening. Which truths do you think still wait in the silence? Which stories has history not yet revealed? Share your thoughts. The conversation itself is part of the discovery until the next story finds us. Keep listening for the footsteps of the past.